We are going to discuss with Jerry Gidel about the USDA's January report and also about drought in South America, right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So Jerry, how are you today? Let's jump right into your analysis about the USDA January report. Do you think there will be major numbers in there, major shifts from previous reports?
Well, there hasn't been a real big long tradition of that going on in from the November number to the final number in January. In most cases here, small numbers, relatively speaking, adjustments there, and to some extent, surprisingly, in soybeans, it's like 7 out of the last 8 years the production and yield numbers were slightly down. Now, these are not huge adjustments. I'm thinking 20 million myself. Maybe we're going to have a chance to go 1 or 2 tenths lower, maybe closer to 50. And that, from that standpoint, on the corn side, it looks like it's more like it's like 7 or 9 years that it's went down. We did have a big adjustment a couple of years ago in reaction to the very wet spring we had and issues like that in the final number because of the quality factors that came into the crop. But traditionally, not a lot of change there. I'm looking in the 50, 60 million decline scenario and maybe a 4/10 decline. Now, late this afternoon, we did end up seeing the some trade numbers coming out that to some extent we did have a small bounce in November. So there's some people looking for higher numbers, not surprising. But the average numbers here on the crop size is basically about unchanged, with maybe a slight decline in harvested acres on corn, and on the soybean side, they're looking for a 1/10 up in average yield. So to 50.3, with a slight increase. I'm looking for 20 million down there. People looking for 20 million up on the crop size. And to some extent, that's not a big to do. Why is there excitement? Well, it finally puts some finalization into it, and the swing there of 30 to 40 million on soybeans, say 20 down against 20 up, can make a big difference on how the USDA has to deal with their carryover stock, which is already at 220 million at this point, as we go into the South American heavy growing season. It stands right now. The USDA's production numbers will have some meaning, of course, on how the USDA kind of looks at its supply demand numbers. And that's really the next number that people always look at in that. And that's kind of depends on right now, at least, lots of concerns about overseas demand. Corn, particularly, I think they definitely have some reasons to take it down 75 or million or so, maybe even 100. That wouldn't surprise me here because we are so significantly behind. Now, it seems to be a combination of the Chinese deciding that they can get by and maybe utilize Brazilian corn only this year. They made a big effort to get the trading channels open there with Brazil. And that the biggest problem is that there's probably not going to be any kind of corn coming out of Argentina. Definitely nothing improving on that side of the ledger here overall in the last week to 10 days with the weather down there. The soybean side of things, we just got some updates this week on our final numbers for the quarter on U.S. soybean crush. I think that's right on target in that with we're slightly above a year ago. And then you swing over to the actual exports there. And earlier in the fall, we were kind of running behind, but in general, the purchases have been picked up, and we're actually ahead of last year and also the seasonal. So I don't know if they can really whack away on that on exports on the soybean side of things. It's really going to be what is the final crop size going to do as to what direction we go here on the U.S. Indian carryover stocks. There's a little play, by the way, a little room for play with a residual at 22 million right now. I'm kind of using that because I really think that the USDA, when it gets to these numbers now, because of the fact that there's always this optimism that around the corner the rains are going to be better, and all of a sudden the issues in Argentina will be over with, and Brazil, and the southern parts of Rio Grande and parts of other, maybe even Paraná, definitely could use more moisture. And if all of a sudden that switches, and things do, boy, if you're in California in the last 2 weeks, you wonder where the drought is and all the rain that showed up there. But that doesn't mean it's going to be there when you need it later. So that's the whole thing. Sometimes the world weather issues can be quite fickle. So they've been talking about a change here in Argentina. So, oh, gee, it's 2 or 3 months now, and it hasn't shown up yet.
Yes, and we did we have had some rain in southern parts of Brazil during this week, but not enough to reverse the track of things, and we are still looking forward to a reduced crop in the Brazilian southern states.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the same things that are impacting Argentina, the Rio Grande do Sul's, maybe, as I said, Paraná. And really, I think in Brazil here particularly, I don't know, there's, as always, you get some kind of emotional reaction. There were some people talking about the corn crop, that 40% of it was damaged or wasn't going to come up, things like that in one report. But the interesting thing about Argentina is the fact that that in some places they're just having the grain they've planted is still in dry dirt even a couple weeks from ago, and that delays things. The worst thing that could happen to any agricultural planting season is to start dry, get enough moisture to actually get the thing to germinate and start to try to put a root system together, and then all of a sudden turn dry, and all of a sudden it just didn't have enough energy to get out of the ground. There's still some issues down there in Argentina that could be the case at this point. The wheat crop seems to be about, depends on if you think it's 22 million last year and it's 11 or 12 this year, it's nearly 50% off type situation. And I think the one interesting twist on it here that it makes it kind of makes it tough to judge on is that there's some people anticipating some of the soybean acres to possibly switched over to the second crop, if you will, on corn. Problem is that corn's a lot more susceptible to problems with weather than maybe beans are. So that's going to be an interesting track on it. As I mentioned here earlier, the international averages that we come together here, they were off from the 55 million down to 51 and a half or so, or 51 from that on the, on the corn. While beans, the number was 46.7, I guess it is. Looking at my cheat sheet here. And that down from 49 and a half in Argentina. And those, they're interesting. They make things think. If we're really going to get things really cooking, though, and get excited about South America, we need to see those numbers, be under further stress, and maybe even put a little bit of heat on the general attitude of 152 million on soybeans and 126 million on corn in Brazil. Basically, though, the big crop is up in Mato Grosso, Goiás, as parts of Rio Grande do Sul, and further north, and that. So the impact of the current issues in South America still make those numbers at least less vulnerable than in Brazil. Brazil than they do in Argentina. They're the ones that's under the gun right now.
And what's your perspective on the markets for the coming days, given this scenario?
Well, I kind of feel like that we really had an interesting and not totally surprising price activity here during the Christmas holidays, and that particularly when many of the world's trading firms and the technical trading activity that the mutual funds and commodity funds use, in that they really kind of pulled out of there before Christmas. And then we had this kind of floating market that came up all the way up to the last day of December. And then, wow, this week we really, in 2 days, we took it, most of it back down as the technicals. And part of it was because of the rain in Argentina that happened. As I said, it was possibly only impacting 35-40% of the area down there, but it was noted. And so either the locals scampered right back out of there as they were the buyers of the thing, and then the funds at this point. I'm still hearing that there's still a lot of people who still are kind of hanging back, coming back from the holiday period here at this point, and maybe not really engaged until maybe next week. But if they were back, they probably were sellers, particularly in the wheat markets and that along the way. So we've kind of taken all things back down towards the pre-December or pre-Christmas period. Kind of feel like it's going to keep bouncing around. Today in beans, we had quite a good recovery. That was really noted because of a resurgence of the eastern U.S. Livestock and poultry people coming in here and deciding that they better get a little coverage out here because of the volatility that's going on in South America. And so all of a sudden the meal caught fire, and we got a pretty good bounce going in beans, while corn and wheat still kind of lumping along here after the setback this week on those. Right now, at least, we could still be pretty choppy here until we get those numbers out and get them behind us. Not that there's going to be huge, surprisingly big or smaller numbers, as we kind of discussed here earlier, and that on the old crop corn and soybeans, and maybe even the S&Ds. It's just the fact that these are the final kind of numbers for last year on production. It's getting a better handle on what's going on here on our demand side of things. And the one thing we also will be getting the first look at is the U.S. wheat plantings at this point. Lots of different theories and ideas out there. I was kind of anticipating one time that we wouldn't have a lot of expansion in hard red, basically the wheat that goes from Kansas to Texas and out that direction, while the Pacific Northwest and the Eastern Corn Belt will be unchanged up a little bit. But I kind of changed my tune here as I started listening to people out there. It seems that people were going ahead and planting things, and maybe then looking at insurance. If they don't get a crop, they're going to pay for it, or they can come back in next spring and decide to do something else with it if the moisture's there. So I'm anticipating an increase. About 700,000 acres, but some people in the trade are even as high as 1 million acres up on that winter wheat now. So that's another one that's in this whole thing. The wheat market is probably one of the most difficult ones this time of year to get a handle on. And I continue to be quite baffled, actually. One of the things that continues to say, wow, since the big reassurers decided to pull out of supporting the boats going into the Black Sea, there for a few days this year, we haven't seen much activity in that situation, but supposedly there was some reports the last couple of days here that there was some boats moving back into Odessa. But I think that's really could be a very important factor going forward, because basically the wheat and corn that comes out of there is still highly important to the world. And if it gets shaved back again through either this reassurancing or other issues with the inspectors not doing their job down there in Turkey, and getting this stuff through. The wheat market still has a lot of volatility in it going forward. But right now, at least, I think we're going to kind of chop back and forth into the report. And then I think we'll be dealing with what the South American crop conditions will be doing. And that I kind of say, though, people, if we do get some kind of recoveries here, we should be looking back towards these recent highs for some selling opportunities in both corn and soybeans, and maybe even getting some new crops started. It kind of points out that the volatility of these markets can turn on a dime. So having these are not terrible prices out here for U.S. producers and even world producers at this point. So keep that in mind longer term. But we'll stare into the report on next Thursday.
Thank you very much, Jerry.
Always good to talk, Luis, and I guess we'll have plenty of things to talk about next week.
Indeed. Thank you.